The requirements are meant to expose students to a variety of texts and genres, not to be confused with a strict set of requirements. As educators, we must set high expectations for our readers. Our ultimate goal is for all students to discover that they can be readers by focusing on their successes as opposed to requirements. Teachers should approve student reading choices and use class discussions to invite students into investigating multiple genres. Students can be introduced to authors during classroom read alouds. Readers' notebooks are a tool students can use to tally books read in each genre, maintain a list of books read, and write a variety of responses to their independent reading.
Students need reading role models. Teachers are major reading role models. Miller has reading credibility. She has this because she is constantly reading. She recommends books of interest to her students. She's enthusiastic about reading, shares when she's up all night, lost in a good book, which shows that she is willing to sacrifice sleeping for a great read. There is evidence that a teacher's views on what reading is affects students' perceptions of reading. Show your joy toward reading. Kids listen to kids. They too make great reading role models. Please listen.
I just spoke with a group of second, third, fourth, and fifth graders yesterday, about 300 students in the team. We were talking about book recommendations and giving each other book recommendations. And I asked the whole group, who's the best person to give a book recommendation to a third grader? And the kids talked with each other, and I heard things like mom, dad, my teacher, my librarian. And one little girl said, another third grader. Children need a community of support that values independent reading. Often their peer group does more to hinder that development than support it. But we know that the power of the peer can really be utilized in a way that supports children as readers. While I might give great book recommendations to my students, or parents may have great book recommendations for their children, in order to build a reading community of their own, apart from a parent or an adult driving that for children, they need to develop connections to their peers around reading.
Miller's seventh argument is about employing practices that match the habits of true readers and what matters most to students. She is a proponent of employing literacy practices that match the habits of true readers. Many of the traditional ways of doing things, what educational policy leader Richard Elmore calls unexamined wallpaper, are so habitual in school culture that their effectiveness is never questioned. Teachers must consider the goal of the practice and make sure it is motivating for students and supports the habits of lifelong readers. What makes reading laborious to many students is the work around reading designed to prove that students actually read. One of Miller's students, Skylar, told her, "What makes reading painful is when it takes longer to do reading worksheets about a book than to actually read a book." Reading skills, features, purposes of various texts, and state standards can all be practiced in authentic ways while reading real books students have selected. Many old practices can be replaced with more effective and student-led practices that will allow students ample time to read every day. For example, whole class novels in which it takes so long to read a book or overanalysis limits comprehension can be replaced with selecting one theme or concept, gathering a variety of books around this concept, and allowing students choice and reading the books around that particular theme. The traditional practice of comprehension tests or regurgitating facts or summarizing a book after you read may not allow students to grasp the nuances of the themes in the book. Some alternatives would be teaching standardized tests as its own genre when appropriate, and also providing students with a background in literary terms and topics, and then real opportunities to practice those skills in their independent books. The traditional practice of book reports or book talks May also just lead students to recite facts and maybe even give away too much information about the book, which may cause other students to not want to read the book. Some alternatives to that could be book commercials or book reviews, which are basically short teasers of books to recommend and entice other students to read. The old traditional practice of reading logs or recording your time spent reading to prove that you read takes the motivation away from the student and puts it outside the child. A great alternative to that would be to expand reading time in class, and then you know that your students have the time and are using the time to read. Also, to celebrate the completion of books so students are motivated to want to read more. The traditional practice of round robin and popcorn reading are negative for both the student who may be a little bit slower in reading and also the students who are quicker readers who may be bored. Some alternatives would be preparing and practicing as in a reader's theater, pairing students with similar reading abilities together to buddy read, or even providing audiobooks to help model fluent reading for students. And incentive programs where students are motivated by an external reward should be replaced by modeling how reading is its own reward. Donald Miller says, reading is a university course in life. It makes us smarter by increasing our vocabulary and background knowledge of countless topics. Reading allows us to travel to destinations that we will never experience outside the pages of a book. Reading is a way to find friends who have the same problems we do and who can give advice on solving those problems. We want students to internalize the rewards for reading, not look for reading as only to receive an external reward or prize. French author Daniel Pennock developed a list of rights of the reader. Miller cautions not to hang this poster in your classroom as it may be misinterpreted by some. For example, number 1 on the list. But teachers should recognize that these rights, and share some with students to validate what the students have already done while reading. For example, students have the right not to finish a book, but some students feel guilty when they haven't finished but would rather read something else. This shows students that real readers have these rights, real readers do these, and it is okay.
Thank you for watching our video. Please exit and retake the interactive post quiz. Hopefully you'll score 100.